on the Big Bears, if you look close, each of these screws has been hit with a punch. So yeah, if any of you come across that challenge where the back of the M8 bolts have been punched out to wreck the thread so you can't remove that Sprag bearing, that's how I did it. Trying it a little different this year, resurfacing with a sump pump, puts out more water. This year the challenge is, with all the thawing and freezing, have all these air bubbles. So I'm just pumping water over to fill the air bubbles. Might take a couple of coats. Ho ho ho! And I might be pulling water out too fast if you heard that crack. You see, the whole thing just settled and now it's pushing more water out the pipe there. It's one of the tricks with a pipe in the ice like this, is if I take out too much water and the ice settles and the pipe is frozen with it, pulls the pipe down and just keeps pulling more and more water out. So I just chipped out the pipe so this can flex so I'm not losing water and creating an air pocket that's going to pull the whole thing down. We'll go a little at a time. It's cold enough today. We'll get this resurfaced. All right, ice making wasn't the point of today's little short video. I want to do a shorter one-off video on the starter clutch bearing, the Sprag bearing on the Big Bear, because it had a surprise in here for me and it slowed me down. So yeah, so here we are. Here's the one-way bearing, and I have two flywheels here. Now here's the Sprag bearing, and this one went bad. It's flat, started sliding around on the starter gear, and you see a little bit of chatter on there. So go to swap out this bearing. Well, it doesn't lift up. There's a lip on the other side here. So to get this bearing out, you've got to take this collar off. Here's the collar that came off of this one here. And to prove the point, here you go. Here's a bad bearing because I had two spare motors, both bad. There's that lip. So you can't just press it in. You've got to take this whole component off. To do that, I ran into a challenge. On the Big Bears, if you look close, each of these screws has been hit with a punch on the back. And that crushed out the threads. So getting these screws out, wasn't able to do it. If I flip this one over, I hit these with an air impact. Nothing was able to break them out, and I started stripping out threads. So, as you can see on this one, took my grinder, grind it flat to get rid of the dimple. Once I had done that, then I was able to hit these. It's a 5mm hex head. Hit them real quick with air to break them out. They zip right out. These are a button head bolt. It's an M8 1¼ pitch and 20mm. And 20mm, of course, measures from the end here to the bottom of the top. So I got a pack of, I think this is 20 on Amazon. Because to get them out, I had to ruin them. I ended up taking my micro air die grinder and a set of burr bits and working around within each of these until the head popped off. And once the head popped off, I could lift this right out. So why did I do that? I just said I could grind these out and get them. Well, I got half of them to grind out and come out. The other three I couldn't, and completely stripped the heads out. So if I got away lucky, grinding and a little bit of heat, boom, you know, didn't do it. 3 for 6. So that was a challenge there. I'll also point out that if you grind out, you're going to have a lot of cleanup to do to get all the shavings out of the inside here. But that's what it takes to replace the Sprag bearing, at least on these Big Bears. And look at that. Look at how flattened out those are. Absolutely destroyed. So having highlighted that, after you pull your flywheel, use your flywheel puller tool, pull it off. Now hopefully This gear is not so stuck with the blown bearing to the back that you can't lift it out. I had to work to get this one. Ultimately, what I did is wedge, 2 blocks of wood to lift this up, and then put 2 pieces of metal underneath here so that I could reach through with a socket. You notice there's a lip down in there. I set a socket down in there. Once I had this elevated by the gear, gave it a pop, separated it right out. So it took me a little longer than I expected. This whole process, drilling these out to get to this point, getting this off the bike was all of 20 minutes. And then getting this all cleaned up was another hour of grinding. And then I'll have this all put back together with some red Loctite, probably another 30 minutes topped off with oil. So longer than I thought, but I hope that's helpful. And one more look in here with these done. You notice that these 20 millimeters, a little longer there. Oh boy, there's not a difference of 5 millimeters there. This is maybe an odd length, 18, 17 mil, something like that. But there's enough clearance. These will work. So we're putting this back in. These are all red Loctited, crank down. We're good to go. So yeah, if any of you come across that challenge where the back of the M8 bolts have been punched out to wreck the thread so you can't remove that Sprag bearing, that's how I did it. Don't eat the snow.